because non-royal people in Kemet were not buried next to or placed next to royalty in Egypt. So she was royalty, and she was put among the ancestors, okay, in Amenhotep the second's in KV 35 in his tomb. So she was buried next to with Queen Tide and some others, not Nefertiti. All right. Now, here we go. The Djed. Yeah, we about to get into that. I hope y'all still got your pen and paper. Now, this was a statement that was said months ago. That topic regarding symbols representing the everlasting, our genetics are everlasting. Still digging up artifacts today, as we know, as we find out. Still digging up artifacts today, as science advances, so does DNA of those many ancient bones found in Egypt. Shout out to Ali 9532. Now, here we go. The esoteric symbolism of the Djed Pillar. Yep, you guys made a request for us to get into some Kemetic science and symbolism. So here we go. All right, this is one. Okay, this we got several, but this is one. All right. So the Djed Pillar is one of the most ancient and sacred symbols in Egyptian mythology. Okay, it is traditionally associated with Osiris or Osar, the Neter or the god of resurrection, and it represents stability, endurance, and eternal life, right? In esoteric teachings, in symbolic teaching, the Djed, D-J-E-D, the Djed symbolizes the spine, as you can see, the spine of Osiris, and serves as a metaphor for spiritual awakening and the inner pillar of light within the human body, the inner pillar of light within the human body. And shout out to the Kemetic Nation. We broke this down a little bit where they were saying this is a power generator. Okay. So the Djed can be also symbolic of electricity, electromagnetic power, right? So the inner pillar of light within the human body, right? So esoterically, symbolically, the Djed is often symbolic to the human spinal column, okay? With each of its crossbars symbolizing the levels of consciousness or degrees. All right? The raising of the Djed during the ritual ceremonies, especially during the annual raising of the Djed, was a reenactment of Osiris' resurrection and a call for the renewal of order and cosmic balance in Kemet in Egypt. It is both political and spirit, and it is both a political and spiritual event symbolizing the king's alignment with Ma'at, the principle of divine order. As you see here, this is Seti the first, him raising the Djed. Okay, it has to be done. All right, raising the Djed. Okay, and speaking of that, we're going to talk about it. Story time. All right, the story of the raising of the Djed. All right, so did a little research about that. I said, what is that? What is this raising of the Djed ceremony? Right now, in ancient time, before time when the world was still young. Okay, this is a story. And the Nile had not yet chosen her path. The divine king Osiris ruled the land of Kemet with justice, wisdom, and the order of Ma'at. And also, there are stories that say that Osiris was from Sudan, or he was from Anu, or the Anu people. Okay, under his reign, the people flourished, the crops ripened under the sun's gaze, and the Neteru, the god, smiled upon the earth. But darkness stirred in the heart of his brother Set, the god of chaos, the desert, and the storms. Set grew envious of Osiris' glory and conspired against him. In a moment of deceit, he Set trapped Osiris in a chest and cast it into the Nile. The waters wept, the earth stilled, and Osiris vanished from the land of the living. The chest, carried by the current, reached the land of Byblos, okay, and lodged within the roots of a great tamarisk tree or acacia tree. Okay. As the tree grew, it embraced the chest in its trunk, sealing Osiris within, a secret sarcophagus hidden in nature's heart, right? the king of Byblos, unaware of what lay within, cut down the tree and used it as a pillar in his palace. Thus was born the first Djed, the pillar that holds divine truth. As you can see, there's an image of the Djed. We have Osiris, he's laying there, but then he is raised, okay, as a pillar, right? Now, meanwhile, Isis, the devoted wife, the goddess of magic, searched the world for her beloved. This is like a love story. And she searched through the desert winds and foreign lands. She traveled until she came to Byblos, and by her divinity gained access to the sacred pillar. With reverence, she retrieved the tree and brought the body of Osiris back to Kemet, back to Egypt. But Set, discovering her act, struck again. This time, he tore Osiris into 14 pieces. 14 pieces and scattered them across the land. Yet, Isis, undaunted, she gathered each piece with the help of her sister Nephthys, okay, Anubis the embalmer, and Jehudi, the scribe of the Neteru. She reassembled him, but only one piece was missing. And that piece was his phallus swallowed by a goat, by a catfish. Wow. Okay. So with divine craft, Isis, she fashioned a substitute and breathed life back into Osiris long enough to conceive a child, Haru, to be the heir to the throne. This resurrection of Osiris was not complete in body, but complete in spirit. Okay. He descended to rule the Duat, the realm of the dead and the ancestors, as the eternal judge. But in the world of the living, Isis and Haru established the great ritual, the raising of the Djed. And I told you, before we go on further into the story, there is a king's list. There is an ancient king's list that mentions Haru and Ra and many others as pre-dynastic kings. All right? We may talk about that. But anyway, so back to the story. Each year, as the flow of waters of the Nile began to recede and life returned to the soil, the people of Kemet gathered to the temple. The priests chanted ancient hymns, incense burned and curled towards the sky, and the great pillar, carved and decorated with symbols of eternal life, was prepared. The pharaoh, the Insubiti, the pharaoh himself, the living embodiment of Haru, took part. Together with the priests, he raised the Djed upright. This was an annual thing. Every year, he had to raise the Djed upright, pulling it from a horizontal position. He raised it to a vertical. He raised it from a horizontal to a dead position to a living position. Okay, with ropes and ritual strength. As it stood tall and firm, the people cheered. The pillar stood not only for the spine of Osiris, but also as the spine of the universe, the axis around which heaven and earth and the Duat turn. So, yeah, so the Djed represented establishment and power, right? So to raise the Djed was to proclaim that Osiris, the ancestors lived, order was restored, life returned. And in that moment, the powers of chaos were subdued, the breath of Osiris flowed through the land, crops was able to grow, spirits could rise, and the people of Kemet knew they had once again aligned themselves with the eternal rhythm of life, death, and rebirth. And so the Djed remains a pillar of strength, stability, and divine resurrection, a reminder that no matter how deep the darkness is, the light of the ancestors can and will rise again. So some esoteric traditions interpret the Djed as a transmitter of divine energy or the force of life, or the Ka, capable of connecting the earthly realm to the ancestral plane, to the divine. In the situation of Akhenaten's reign, though, and the theological upheaval he initiated, the absence or transformation of the Djed symbol in Amarna could have been seen as a deliberate shift from traditional resurrection symbolism to the direct illumination of the atom. However, later on, some other pharaohs would, include King Tut, restored the Djed's prominence as part of the return to the old way, the return to orthodoxy, reinstating the traditional beliefs around life, death, and spiritual continuity, right? Now, from a metaphysical, the esoteric symbolism of the Djed Pillar from a metaphysical standpoint, the Djed resonates with modern genetic symbolism. Just as DNA preserves hereditary information, the Djed served as a spiritual backbone of dynastic continuity. Just as the Djed symbolizes the structure and integrity of the spine, the DNA, Djed DNA, is the fundamental structure preserving life's blueprint. So the Egyptians may have intuitively understood this connection because a lot of their symbols represent the human body also. A lot of the symbols represent the human body. So this connection, they understood this connection in encoding metaphysical ideas of inheritance, continuity, and divine order into symbols like the Djed. Okay? So with modern genetics, revealing the intricacies of royal bloodlines in the ancient dynasty, the Djed can be reinterpreted as not just a spiritual emblem, but a symbolic prototype of the human genome, a pillar of ancestral memory and dynastic transmission. Now, subscribe if you want more comedic science and history, because we can go. This is just one. And as you look at this picture, this is the Djed, and in both hands, he has life in both hands. And he has those staffs, which keeps him sturdy. Okay, that means whoever this king is, or whoever looks upon that, they are encouraged to be established, to be the best that they can be, to be the living and positive force in the world around them. Okay, but yeah, if you want more comedic science or history, hit the subscribe button, and we'll have a conversation. So the true identity of King Tut's mother remains one of the most ancient, one of the most mysterious things and compelling ideas. So while prominent figures such as Nefertiti and Kaya once held sway with scholarly speculation, a lot of people thought they were his mother, but with the coming of modern DNA, with the coming of modern genetic analysis, it changed the narrative. Okay, the genetic fingerprint of the younger lady, the full sister of Akhenaten and the daughter Amenhotep III and Queen Tai, we still don't know her real name for sure, offers the most definitive evidence yet. Okay, yet even in the clarity of her biological relationship, her name remains lost. We don't know for sure. Erased from memory by the volatile politics and shifting ideologies of the Amarna age, just guilty by association, right? This mystery is not merely a biological or historical, but it's also symbolic, y'all. Her life echoes the broader instability of a dynasty shaken by theological revolution, courtly rivalries, and the consequences of royal issues, right? In probing and dealing with her story, we're also excavating the spiritual and philosophical landscape of civilization that encoded metaphysical truth in every monument, every glyph, and every ritual. The Djed, okay, the Djed, a long pillar, resurrection and order, acquires renewed meaning in this context. So no longer just a symbol of divine stability, it may be reinterpreted as a metaphoric double helix, a visual prophecy of genetic inheritance and dynastic continuity. In the interplay between the symbol and science, the ancient and the modern converge. Myth becomes code, and lineage becomes scripture. The Djed stands not just as a spine of Osiris, but the backbone of memory, biological, cultural, and cosmic. So, as our understanding of genetics deepens, the new discoveries emerge from Kemet sands. We come ever closer to lifting the final veil. Yet, perhaps the power of the mystery lies not in its resolution, but in the capacity to remind us that history is fun. Okay, I love history. Okay, and like DNA, it carries within its sacred spiral of identity, loss, and eternal return. Okay, King Hercules said, check out my presentation on advanced mathematics and Kemet. Okay. And so they show that they knew Schrodinger's equation and the DNA helix. Yeah. Brother Mo says the one with the king that had life in both hands. Yeah. Mo says we asked and you brought the symbolism. Please keep it coming. Thank you for all your hard work. I'm trying, because guess what? School, my regular school is almost over, and so we're about to get into the summer, and you know it's going to be up. You know we're going to have some fun this summer. All right. Yeah. So now, who was the real Mother King Tut? It was the younger lady. All right. So that's the answer. It wasn't Nefertiti. Okay. It wasn't Queen. It wasn't Kaya. Right. It was the younger lady. Now, just so you know, we still in that book, the first female pharaoh, Sebek-Neferu, the goddess of the seven stars. The link is in the description. And here are a few books. Okay. We got a few books. Osiris. We got a book on Osiris and the Egyptian Resurrection by E.A. Wallace Budge. Stolen Legacy by George G.M. James. Stolen Legacy is good. Temple and Man. If you want to get into some comedic science and symbolism, check that book out. And Sacred Science for sure. Okay. All right. So those books are really good. And as time go on, we will be throwing in some comedic science and all those things, the symbolism and all that. And for the kiddos, Tutankhamun and His Friends. That is a very good book. It's an easy read. My parents gave me this when I was like 12 years old. Check it out. It's great. Now, so we talked about DNA, Dynasties, and Deception. If you like the content, subscribe and share with somebody that may enjoy it, and share it on Pinterest or Facebook. Right. So, and guess what? We're about to get into Nubia. Okay, Thrones of Fire and Temples of Light. That is loading. Okay, once we that's going to be live too, and we're going to get into some Kushite symbolism. Yes, indeed. We're going to get into Kush and the Lion Temple of Naka. Right, and somebody else asked about the primordial Neteru, the goddess Net, who gave birth to Ra. Yeah. We're going to get into some pretty dynastic things too. All right. And so I'm excited about it. And of course, the queens, we talked about the queens of the Nile, right? We talked about the top 5. But now we have, since we talked about the top 5, since we talked about the top 5 queens of the Nile, there's a couple of queens. Shout out to Bubba Dub from Dallas. There was a couple of queens that was trash. There was a couple of queens that was trash. If you want me to talk about some 5 or 6 queens that was trash, y'all type trash in the comment. Man, look, everything ain't peaches and cream around here. We always talking about the great ones. There's some of them that were trash. All right. And so if you want me to talk about them, because Happy Mother's Day, there was some of them. There was some of them queens, and you know which one? I got one. There's a couple of them that was trash. All right, so so you want me to talk about the ones that were trash? Let me know. All right. So we just got to talking about DNA, Dynasties, and Deception. Now, if you want to catch up with the Queens of the South series, the link, I have the video. We have the series for that. If you want to know about my top 5 Queens of the Nile Valley and catch up, we got that also. All right. So, so you listen to King Cam and Ujumbe podcast, Ujumbe Means Message, and I will talk to you guys later. See, have a good week. Wait, hold on. Fuck. No, I can't, because a lot of people like to esteem this European girl, Cleopatra, as the one. She wasn't her, and like I said, yeah, Cleopatra, she was trash. Okay, so that's one. All right, but you guys, that's one. All right, so there's 4 more though. There's 4 more. All right, so yeah, we'll talk about her. Yeah, and she was okay. Some people do agree. Okay, some people do agree that Cleopatra, she wasn't her. You see what I'm saying? Fight come with that. It is what it is. but she wasn't the only one. Okay. There was some other sisters in Egypt that was trash. Okay. So, but yeah, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. We're gonna get into that conversation. So, but I really appreciate you guys coming. Yeah. Before we turn loose, are there any questions before we go? Yeah, Mama, we said this was a great time for sure.